we are Sean and myself, Beatrice. We are a digital nomad couple, and in this video we are going to share about what you need to know before relocating to Malta. So why are we sharing this is because we have had the immense opportunity to become residents in Malta, and that was under the digital nomad visa. And that is why we are going to share all about what you need to know if you're a digital nomad, remote worker, or simply someone who wants to relocate and move to Malta or Gozo. What you can expect in this video is we are going to address the different issues that are often mentioned by expats. So if you have done some research before coming to this video, you would have probably heard in different discussion forums or Facebook or somewhere on the internet about some problems that most expats usually talk about, and also what locals mention about. It could be traffic, over constructions, it could be noise pollution, and so on. All of these are going to be addressed in this video, but we are also going to share with you what you can expect in terms of food, in terms of cuisine, in terms of like recreational activities, and give you an overview of what it's like to be a digital nomad in Malta and what you can expect. So let's dive right in.
So Malta is a small island in the Mediterranean, and in Malta the official languages are Maltese and English. As such, everyone in Malta speaks English, so you can just come and you can speak English and you'll be able to speak to most of the locals and everyone who's there. Malta also has different influences from the people who have stayed and colonized Malta, or have stayed there. The history is important because you will then see it reflected through the cuisines, the traditions, and the architecture in Malta. Malta was colonized by the Phoenicians, by the Arabs, by the French, by the British, and the Knights of Malta have a big presence in Malta and have shaped the culture of this country.
Until it became independent in 1964. And now we are going to move on to the next topic, which is cost of living in Malta.
So in Malta, you can expect to pay for rent. We rented on the island of Gozo an apartment with 2 bedrooms, actually 3 bedrooms, for about €1,000, and that would probably be the range. You would be looking at 1,000 to 1,200 euros before utilities and before any internet. Internet was probably around 50 euros for a gigabit internet, which you can get also on the island of Gozo, by the way. So the internet connectivity is quite good and it's very affordable. You have the utilities as well, which you'll have to add on. And the utilities in Malta are subsidized by the government, so they will not be extremely high, but still probably around 100 or 100 euros, maybe 200 euros in extreme cases, because you will be running the air conditioning in summer for sure, and maybe heating in the winter.
Yeah, especially if you're working from home. Like us, we stayed at home mostly, and that was running most of the day. If you're choosing to rent in popular places, you will find, when I say popular places, understand that they're popular for expats, right? And that doesn't need to be your case, because as digital nomads, we don't necessarily need to be in those popular places, because the popular places often might not actually work out for us because we have different needs to an expat. So most expats, they like St. Julian's, they like Sliema, and what is the other? Valletta and Tashbish, around that area. And that's probably because most of them, their offices are found there, their kids go to school around those areas, you know, they have all the private schools, the embassies are also found around there, it's close to Valletta, you know, the capital city, so it makes a lot of sense for them. If you're a digital nomad, you probably are looking for something different, like us. So we wanted to be removed away from the busy areas, from the popular areas, and so that's why we chose to base ourselves in Gozo. And we have seen a lot of nomads as well choosing the island of Gozo because they wanted to work from home in a peaceful, quiet place. And you might want to venture away from St. Julian's and all these kinds of places, and that means you will be saying no to really sky-high not sky high. What do you mean by that? Like, I mean,
Skyscrapers?
Really tall, penthouses on the, I don't know, 5th floor, 6th floor, something like that. You might want to live in a townhouse somewhere near the Medina, in Rabat, or somewhere in the beautiful countryside of Malta, where the air is fresher, the views are beautiful, and you're just peaceful and quiet and away from the traffic and the noise and all the things that most expats complain about. So that is something for you to consider. Look at other, but we'll go deeper into other neighborhoods later on. So that was just to give you an estimate of the prices. But in St. Julian's and Slema, I have seen some apartments that could be like 1 bedroom, but with pool, with gym, very luxurious, very fancy, with a garage sometimes, and that could be like 2,000 euros to 3,000, and of course it goes up as well. And now, cost of living when it comes to some leisure activities, what you can hope to pay.
So for leisure activities, the cost of living is still fairly fine. You will find many free activities on offer, especially if you take an interest into the local traditions. For example, the festas are all completely free, and you can go and attend them, see a nice fireworks show, and partake in the local culture. Usually these will be organized by the local parish, but you also have events which are organized as part of a European culture, and you will find many free events to attend. At least that was our experience in Gozo, and the same is true in Malta. If you want to go for things like nightclubs, that's also available. And in general, entertainment in Malta there is a good offer in place. It will depend on your lifestyle. For us, we prefer the rural areas and we prefer a bit more nature, so Gozo would be an ideal fit. If you want something a bit more fast-paced in city life, you could be based on Malta, you could be in St. Julian's, Sliema, those areas.
Yeah, and you can expect to pay for entrance fees. So if you want to go to St. John's Cathedral or certain art exhibitions and whatnot, it's not that expensive. It will cost you maybe anything between 10 euros to 25 euros for an entrance ticket to some exhibition or something that you might want to go and see. Obviously, if you want to go to the opera or some specific concert, the price range will be much higher, maybe something like 100 euros or more. And depending on the seating that you would prefer as well, if you want VIP seating, it can go up to 250 euros, for instance, where they give you food as well, when you can watch opera from your balcony and enjoy the view. But if you want cultural activities or even sports, if you want to do sports, enjoy water sports, boat tours, that is not going to cost you an arm and a leg. So you will be able to enjoy all of this. I think we covered everything in cost of living.
The price of groceries as well is fairly affordable. You will see that Malta does grow, and Gozo do grow a lot of their own vegetables and local chickens, things like that. You would find imported food. It depends on how you want to eat, but if you do stick to a diet which is mostly composed of locally sourced ingredients, which you can find a wide range if you go to the farmers markets, and if you source the ingredients, you could find something fairly priced. You also have Lidl, which is available if you want to get something quite budget and something good value for the price that you pay. So you can find all these value supermarkets in Malta.
Yeah, including those Asian supermarkets. So if you are thinking of moving to Malta and you're from India, you want to still eat like I'm Chinese, and I wanted to still eat my noodles, and I needed a lot of the Chinese ingredients to cook my Chinese meals, and so we went to these Asian supermarkets. We saw a Chinese supermarket for fairly reasonable prices, so that was great as well. When it comes to co-working spaces, although I didn't try one, did you try co-working spaces?
I did not try a co-working space, but we know that these are available at a reasonable price. They would, of course, be based mostly in Malta. You might have some in Gozo, but I was not aware of any. Otherwise, you can work from hotels, from coffee shops. It might be a bit noisy depending on the coffee shop that you go to, but I found that certain coffee shops on Gozo would be quite enough that you could work from.
But do make sure that you maybe email them or touch base with them. Like I contacted a few cafes to ask them, like, we're digital nomads, we're hoping to work from your cafe. Would that be something you would be okay with? And some of them replied to me, no. So instead we went there and enjoyed a nice coffee and enjoyed a nice brunch, and we didn't bring our laptops with us. So just always be mindful of the culture there and be respectful. Now, compared to other digital nomad hotspots within Europe, like we're not going to go to like Southeast Asia or whatever, but like because Malta is in the EU, let's talk about, I think the price is fairly reasonable.
I think in terms of in Europe, it's one of the better destinations, at least in the EU and in the Schengen area.
Yes.
It's one of the better value destinations that you can get. Inflation, I believe, in Malta was one of the lowest as well when there was a period of high inflation. So you'll also notice that a lot of things in Malta are actually subsidized by the government. So, for example, the utilities is one of the examples, which tends to keep the prices down a bit.
Yeah, and how much did you buy for a really nice coffee at a great cafe?
I don't remember how much it was. I'll put it down in the description when I remember how much it was. It will depend, obviously, if you want very specialty coffee, you would find that for sure in Malta.
Yeah, but I remember, I think we ate a little cannoli for was it €1, €2? We bought one. And then I think we bought a ftira, which is kind of like a sandwich, really good, delicious sandwich. And it was something between I think it was less than €10.
It was less than 10 euros.
So that was great, for lunch, you buy that in a bottle of water. It's perfect. Now let's dive, while we're in the subject of coffee and digital nomad friendly spaces, let's maybe dive deeper into what it's like to be working as a digital nomad in Malta, so that you can make an informed decision if you're looking to relocate or move to Malta as a digital nomad.
So in Malta, the internet connectivity is quite good. So you will see that it's quite reliable and at fairly good value. As
we mentioned previously, you can find plenty of different spaces that you can work from that are laptop friendly. Obviously, maybe not in summer when it's crazy busy with tourists, right? Because all these places will be full, but off season, we found it very generally acceptable to go into a hotel, work from a hotel lobby, not for long again. We work mostly from home, but if that's something you prefer to work from different places, then you can definitely do that. We invite you to go onto our blog where you can read more in depth and we can recommend some places and even co-working spaces and their rates. We haven't tried them, but we have a list for you if you want to check them out. We have some personal recommendations for where we preferred to work. I definitely preferred to work from home because that was an environment that I could control. I could control the AC, the aircon, I could control what I'm eating, when I'm eating. I could control the noise level. When there was construction opposite our flat, we could just close the door and move on to something else. Whereas if I'm working from a cafe, it's a little bit harder to do that. I've done that once, and I think I sat next to a really busy table and I found it very difficult, even with headphones on, I found it quite difficult to concentrate. So that doesn't work for me. But if you're someone like my husband, he tends to also enjoying working from coffee shops. You've done a few. I would usually go on a day where I don't have meetings. Like I've mentioned, coffee shops, especially in Malta Gozo, of course, they're coffee shops. They can have quite a bit of noise. So I wouldn't recommend to go there if you have a meeting. Definitely go to a co-working space if there is one, or take the call at home. Yeah. But which one did you try? Victoria Cafe in Gozo is one of my favorites. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful little cafe, and it's in a good spot as well. If you're going to go visit the Citadel, you can definitely pass by there. So you can maybe take a lunch break, go visit the Citadel, come back, continue to work. And you will also notice that it's a local roastery, so they roast their own coffee in-house, their specialty coffee. Yeah. And that's really good. That's one thing we loved about Malta, is that work-life balance that you can get. Malta is quite compact. The area itself, it's 316 kilometers square, which means if you want to explore on a day where you're actually working, you could actually take 2 hours and just zip through and explore some other neighborhoods, some other towns next door. You could explore some beaches, you could explore some walking trails, you could get all that done and still enjoy your day of work, right? Malta during the summer months as well has more daylight, so that gives you plenty of time to work depending on your schedule, and then after that or before you could explore the island, you could go to the different bars, cafes, you could do outdoor activities. There's plenty to do in Malta.
A few notes about public transport in Malta in general. So if you're deciding to live on Gozo, you will maybe sometimes need to go to the main island of Malta, and to do so you will need to take a ferry. Now you will notice in certain months that the ferry will not operate because it will be too windy. So that can be a challenge to think about, and also consider that public transport in Malta, especially at the peak of summer when both tourists and locals are using public transport, can maybe not be as reliable as you might expect. That being said, you have 2 ride-hailing apps that we would recommend, Bolt and eCabs, which are fairly reliable, affordably priced, and you can get transport in a matter of minutes.
For me, I actually enjoyed walking around, so usually I would just walk around wherever I am, and I found it really decent to walk around. So if you enjoy that too, depending on where you're based, if you're based in Sliema and those kinds of neighborhoods, you might be able to just walk around and you might not need to use taxis and cabs. You can have a beautiful promenade on Sliema, you can walk alongside that, and there are many restaurants, shops and so on, and plenty to enjoy. Now let's get deeper into lifestyle and leisure. Now, what can you expect to do when you are off or when you're not working in Malta? So we've covered a little bit, but let's go deeper into this now. So you have obviously, Malta is very well known to be a popular destination for swimming and beaches, but we would have to add that there are not that many sandy beaches. So if you're expecting something like, let's say you've spent a lot of time in Indonesia or Mauritius, the tropics, right? Barbados and Mauritius, like us, you wouldn't really find those long stretches of sandy beaches. There are a few.
Yeah.
There are a few. Although some of them are quite difficult to access. So if you have mobility issues, if you're in a wheelchair, or even if you don't have a car, it might be difficult, might be long to walk, to access to.
Yeah, just to manage your expectations, do not expect this to be a tropical destination in the heart of Europe. You will have sandy beaches, but they might not be as white and fine sand as you might expect. Yeah. In some cases it's pebbles, or in most cases you would probably be diving off a cliff, or diving off the side of, let's say for instance in Sliema, there are places where you can go into the sea, but it will be off a concrete pier or off the rocks.
That's what we did. So we went to, it was just, I think there was a shopping mall, and then there was this piece of concrete, and we just put our towel there, and then you'd have the bay, and
or off cliffs or off rocks. So that would be the kind of swimming you can expect. But yeah, we would, if you do want to go swimming, we would highly recommend to go to Gozo and try the beaches there.
Otherwise, what's really popular also is snorkeling, diving. That's beautiful. So if you're into that, by all means, go ahead. There's lots of diving clubs that you could get into. There's also one in Gozo that's very well reputed. So you can join a club and then go and snorkel and dive. There's also lots of festivals and cultural events. So Sean mentioned earlier the festas. So festas means festival, and it's usually during the summer months. So it can start anywhere between June to early September, I would say. And what this means is different parishes all over the island And note, there are over 300 churches, so that's a lot of it. And basically, each parish will celebrate one saint, right? And there are different saints, Saint Antonio and Saint Joseph, Mary, different saints, different patron saints. And during those festas, for each parish, it can last anything between 1 week to 2 weeks sometimes, where you have a lot of processions, there are masses, services, but it also extends beyond the parishes to take into the streets. So that can be annoying to some, and that is one of the things that a lot of expats have complained about, that they are tired of it, that the noise, because they usually have also fireworks during those festas. They usually have some concerts, you might hear trumpets and drums and so on, like music, right? And then they have also these petards. Now petards, it blasts and it's quite loud, and it might really shock you. And depending on where you live or which neighborhood, it can have this resounding effect, almost like an echo between the buildings. So it can really, you can hear it while you're sitting in your house, feel like it's much more louder, almost like a bomb, and it can really shock you. So some people have also had issues with that, because if they have mental health issues or their nervous system is a bit frazzled because of these sounds that just pop up at random hours.
Or if you have pets also.
Or if you have pets as well, this can be quite alarming for them.
And what tends to happen is, especially if you're in the very crowded parts of, let's say, Sliema, you will find that it's surrounded by many different parishes.
Yeah.
So it will almost seem like an endless stream of festas, because
Yes.
it will be one parish after another, or even simultaneously.
Yeah, so you might feel it never ends. And there are times, sometimes it starts at 6 in the morning, sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's in the night, right? Until midnight. I have heard some until midnight. And what we have done to overcome this is we have learned a lot about what it all means. So we dug deeper into their culture, and we understood that it's their custom and their tradition. So before we went to Malta, we understood that this was to be expected. So that's why we're also sharing this with you, so that you can make an informed decision and you can go into Malta before relocating and understand, okay, is it for you and is it not for you, and what the solution can be. So here's one of the solutions that we can share with you, and maybe you want to adopt this. So we went there with we sort of maybe humbled ourselves also a bit to think, because I really do not like noise. I do not like fireworks. I do not like petards. So I thought this was going to be very terrible for me, and I thought I don't think I will be able to live and survive. But I did, and what I did was I conditioned myself to understand that this is part of their culture. This is something that is very important to the Maltese people. They are celebrating their patron saint. They're celebrating something that happened to Mary or Jesus, right? And it's very meaningful for them and for their religion. And so I tried to understand from that point of view. And then there was someone who explained to us, his cousin was actually the one lighting up all these petards. And they explained to us that there is a purpose. There are specific petards and specific noises that would mean something. So maybe this petard ringing at this particular hour would mean, okay, now we are about to start the service, come to church, in 15 minutes we're about to start the service, or soon the procession is going to arrive, and now we're going to start the march into the street, So everything has a purpose. And when we understood that, it sort of brought things back into perspective. And we thought, well, if we can't beat them, why not join them? So instead of working during those times when we had a program, we actually joined them. We actually went to see, you went to see in Valletta, I think, and then I went to see there was a concert which we went to. We heard people singing, so it was yeah, we joined them, and we actually started looking forward to those festas and to celebrate with them as well. Beyond the summer festas, there are also other things like carnivals, but it's also linked to Lent, right? It's also linked to these religious festivals like Epiphany. You have Epiphany, have Carnival, Easter, and all that. But there's also cultural events. So if you're not into the religious things at all, you're like, no, just give me art and culture. There's also that to enjoy. There are different cultural events. There is opera and music tends to start between, I think, October, November, around that period. Then you can expect to see more like art exhibitions and everything during the summer months, and and other exhibitions during the winter months. You can see, a photography exhibition, for instance, or just general leisure and entertainment. So if you are into eating out, you love to dine out, you have anything from Michelin-starred restaurants to the smaller cafes, street food style, where you can just grab a sandwich or a pizza or something like that. These are plentiful, and we're talking about different kinds of cuisine, right? We're talking about Korean, Japanese, Indian. We've had them all. You have also typical Maltese cuisine where they serve rabbit stew, or was it horse meat as well? But also some other traditional things that are too long to pronounce, but they make
local cheese called beignet, and definitely do try that. Local ricotta as well. They make
and they make some kind of pasta in the oven, and it's just baked, and it's just so delicious. Like, you can have so many things to try, but you can also have Italian restaurants, French restaurants, very fancy dining. Like, honestly, all kinds of things, but also the usual fast food things that you will see as well. So you'll have plenty to choose from. So now we can address some of the potential challenges or downsides that you might consider before deciding to move to Malta. And the reason we say that is because when you're going to do your research, like I mentioned before, when you go to Facebook groups, asking expats or asking locals, what do you think? I'm moving to Malta. I'm thinking of moving to Malta for a month. I'm thinking of moving to Malta and relocating to Malta. What are your experiences? What can I expect? They will probably tell you not to move there. They'll probably warn you about traffic, about pollution, about some stuff, which we're going to address now. So from the expat's perspective, they will say the noise, which we've already addressed, the festas. You just approach it as a cultural thing, but then it's also up to you to decide whether you will be able to put up with this or whether it's a total non-negotiable for you. If you really like just your peace and quiet, then definitely Malta will not be the place for you during the summer months, but maybe you can come after that, right? For us, I thought it was a problem, but it turned out to not be a problem. But we also made sure that we chose some place that wasn't surrounded by too many churches in order to avoid having this never-ending festa season one after the other. So there are ways about it. The expats might also complain about the traffic, right? Because usually a lot of expats would move to Malta because they have a job in Malta. And so if they move with their family, their offices would be based in the neighborhood where they are driving to. Their house would be there. Their kids dropping them to school would be around these areas. And so obviously, if everyone is going to these very densely populated places, and often the expat chooses the same neighborhoods, obviously traffic is going to be a bit of a mission. It's going to be a nightmare. But if you're a digital nomad, remote worker like us, you are more likely to have a very flexible schedule, which means you can choose to not go out at these peak hours, and you can choose to go at another time, right? So that's how you can avoid the traffic. Then on the locals' perspective, I have read a survey done by the local newspaper Times of Malta, where they mentioned that cost of living is a huge problem according to the locals. Cost of living, like we just mentioned, as a digital nomad, you probably go to different places. As a digital nomad, you're probably going to the UK, Canada, and then going to Bali, going to Southeast Asia, zipping through to Barbados or other places. And so you would have a range of cost of living, and you can try to offset it by going to a low income country and then high income, low income, and so on. And you can manage your budget. And so, but we didn't find Malta to be very expensive. The cost of living for locals we can understand, because if you are a local earning a local salary, that's definitely not enough because of the high rent, which there was also another problem that they mentioned. The locals also mentioned the problem of corruption. They also mentioned the problem of overconstruction because of gentrification. You have all these property companies.
A lot of high-end properties.
Yeah, they're building all these tall buildings and just cramming so many apartments in that. So that can be disturbing. The peace.
It rises the prices are rising as a result for buying apartments, and in many cases you'll find that property prices are very, very high in Malta for what you get for the square foot and for what is actually in the apartment.
Exactly. So, but all these problems that we just mentioned, there are ways around it. Like we've mentioned, the traffic, just don't go during the peak hours. Don't stay in those neighborhoods that are mostly populated. Go somewhere where it's just as nice, but maybe you don't need a school, right? Because maybe you're a digital nomad, solo traveler, or a couple, you don't have kids, and so you won't need to be near a school, near a French school, near a private school. You might go to wherever you feel more comfortable. Right.
And if you're thinking of moving to Gozo, don't be discouraged by the fact that it is a rural area. You will find that surprisingly the internet connectivity is very good, as is the availability of ride-hailing apps like Bolt and even public transport. So moving to a rural area may not have the same meaning that you're used to. Maybe in your country when you move to a rural area there isn't anything. This might not be the case for, let's say, Gozo or rural Gozo or rural Malta.
Yeah, you will find a shop selling some vegetables. You will find every town, every village has a square, has a church of some sort, so you could still congregate there and find some people to hang out with you in a cafe, right? Obviously, if you're in the busier places, you get more abundance of cafes, and you can order a matcha latte, for example, other than the ones in the smaller towns, but you can still find the amenities like cafes, shops, pharmacies, a doctor available, and so on. So don't be discouraged. And what else? I think corruption, so how to deal with corruption. Yes, that is something that is quite unfortunate. That is something that could also increase crime in some cases, but the way we avoided that was to be streetwise, to be street smart, to avoid getting into like strange, dodgy things. We kept to ourselves mostly, to our work, and then we made friends with some locals and some expats that we used to see. But then you just have to be mindful what you engage with, what your activities are. But if you're staying for 1 year or 2 years, which is probably the case if you're a digital nomad relocating to Malta, you might not want to stay longer than that. So I don't think you will be much affected by that at all.
Just to add on that, we found that the government services, especially related to the Nomad Residence Permit, was very clear and very efficient, so you won't have any issues on that front. All our papers were processed very quickly, very efficiently.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about the Nomad Residence Permit, how to apply, what the timeline is, what our experiences, do you get rejected, is it easy, is it difficult to move to Malta, is it difficult to relocate there? We share that in another video, which you might want to check out. One challenge that we need to address is the comparison because we were able to live in Malta and Gozo during peak season, but also experience it outside of the peak tourist season. So we can tell you what the difference is. All you need to know is that peak season is crazy busy, right? It will affect your public transport, it will affect where you go for leisure or eating out, having a coffee. You'll be surrounded with, the tables will be full, the service will be sometimes inconsistent because now they're busy, it's chaotic in the kitchen, right? And so the food quality might not be the same, and often we've seen that outside of peak season it's much more relaxed, but also outside of peak season sometimes the very popular restaurants would close because they're like, okay, the season is over, we're closing, and just when we want to enjoy them, now they've closed, right? But there are other restaurants that are open. So certain things that you might want to do during the off season might not be available because it's simply not the season. Yeah, that's something to keep in mind.
Water sports, if you want to do it, it does get quite windy in the winter, so you might not be able to practice them.
Exactly. And so that is something to keep in mind. In the summer months, it can be crazy busy. So if you're thinking, oh, if you're a digital nomad who has relocated to Malta and you're thinking, oh, during the summer months, now I'm going to enjoy but this beach. But now you're going to be sharing that beach or that bay with thousands of other tourists as well. So it could drive you crazy as well. But it's something to know. But you have lovely shoulder months before the peak summer, so around April, May, June. These are great. We found that we could still go swimming.
You could still go swimming up to
November. Yeah, we went to the beach in November, and I was in my swimsuit. It was quite hot, and I was eating frozen grapes because it was so hot in November. So you can still go. You can still enjoy the outdoors even until late, even in December. I remember for Christmas, we have another video which we shared about Christmas, what Christmas is like in December. You can check it out, and you will see that we still have blue skies. We were not dressed in coats necessarily, but there were days there was quite mild, and I would dress just like I'm dressed now, with just a simple jumper. And you can go out like that, or sometimes during the day we didn't even have to wear a jumper. I remember wearing a summer dress on the 25th of December. We ate lunch on our balcony. It was quite warm, so there was no need for winter wear in December in Malta.
In Malta, you can expect the weather to be Mediterranean with mild winters, fairly hot summers. So it's quite a nice weather to be in. Do be mindful though that in the winter it can get very windy. It sometimes can get windy as well during the shoulder months. And that means that, for example, you might not be able to practice certain water sports, or it actually feels a lot colder than it actually is when you have that wind blowing on you. So the wind chill factor is something you need to factor in. So if you're going to Malta in those months, maybe do bring a jacket or something like that. And the wind also affects the availability of ferries going to and from Gozo and Malta.
Yeah, and something to note about the wind is that if you're really nerdy about that and you want to know, okay, what do you mean by how windy does it get? Well, sometimes in late February, for example, between early October to late February, you can get gale force winds.
Gale force winds or higher.
Yeah, and they can be between, I think, 65 kilometers per hour. So that ranges about 7 on the Beaufort wind scale. But there are some months, some extreme conditions where it can even go up to 8 or 9 on the Beaufort wind scale, which is then up to 95 kilometers per hour. So that's something to consider as well. Other than that, like we mentioned, plenty of sunny days. So Malta is one of the top reasons why a lot of digital nomads choose to go to Malta, because it's fairly pleasant. You have beautiful blue skies. It's gorgeous. It's in the summer months and the shoulder months as well. But we also found something worth mentioning in Gozo during the winter. After the rain, everything just gets covered with a lush carpet of green, and it was just so beautiful to drive around Gozo and to see everything look so beautiful green, because usually it would be quite dry. The the geography.
It's like semi-arid.
Yeah, it's like semi-arid, so it was totally different to suddenly see everything covered in green. That was such a treat in winter. And other than that, well, we are at the end of this video. Let us know what you think, if you have any questions, anything you want to ask that we haven't covered, anything you've heard that you would like us to elaborate on or expand on, any recommendations you would like from us, you're welcome to ask that in the comments below. But just to recap what we have talked about, we have given you a brief overview of Malta and the facts that of this small Mediterranean island, that some of the difficulties that you can expect from, as told from expats or locals, some challenges that you might encounter. We've covered that. We've covered also what you can expect to live there in Malta, the cost of living, what you can expect to pay for rent, what you can expect to pay for if you want to go out and enjoy the Maltese culture. And then we've talked about different things to do, work-life balance in Malta, the internet, the digital nomad infrastructure or the co-working spaces. All of these we've covered in this video. So we hope that it's going to be useful for you to make an informed decision before you decide to relocate or move to Malta. And if you're watching this video and you're like, you know what, I am sold, I really want to go to Malta now, I want to go and live there, what it's like to live in Malta and Gozo, you can find more videos on that we've covered. Living in Malta, living in Gozo, what it's like, what's the day in the life of a digital nomad really like. And we also cover the Nomad Residence Permit, from the application to successfully obtaining it and then enjoying the Maltese lifestyle. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks for subscribing as well. Please leave us a comment. Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.